Let's start with the thing that made people go absolutely nuts on Twitter yesterday. Shane Steichen doing his, his weekly Tuesday press conference. He's getting asked all these questions. And yeah, he got asked a question yesterday about whether or not Anthony Richardson would be the starter. And here's what he had to say.
Is he starting Sunday?
We are evaluating everything.
They're evaluating everything, which led to everybody going absolutely crazy, right? Oh, they're going to pull him. They're going to bench him. They're going to start Flacco. People just going absolutely nuts, and rightfully so. Okay, usually when Shane Steichen is asked this question, his response is, Anthony Richardson is our starting quarterback. Every time he has been asked that question, up until yesterday, the response has been the same. Anthony Richardson is our guy. We're going to play him. That's who we're going to play. Yesterday, though, they're evaluating everything. Okay? And this has led to the two different camps of Colts fans reacting very differently. Joe Flacco fans are pumped. They're like, let's go, 39-year-old quarterback who can't move. Let's put that guy in. They're all excited. They're throwing parades. They're throwing parties. Meanwhile, the Anthony Richardson people are freaking out.
Everyone run for cover. Let's do it. Mayday. Mayday. Code red. Duck is covered. The sky is falling. The sky is falling.
That was Anthony Richardson fans everywhere yesterday, just going absolutely crazy. No, you can't give up on him. He's only started 10 games. He's only finished like 6 of them. The tape is better than the numbers, and people just going absolutely crazy. And it's so just kind of funny, just sitting back and watching everyone go nuts. And thankfully, and part of why people are going nuts is because they just see that. Okay, they just see the quote from Shane Steichen saying that they're evaluating everything after being asked whether or not Anthony Richardson was going to start on Sunday. Thankfully, one of the Colts reporters, Chappie, actually, asked for clarification on what Shane Steichen means when he says they're evaluating everything.
I don't want to read too much into what you said, but when you said you're evaluating everything on him starting Sunday, is there a question that he starts Sunday in Minnesota?
Like I said, we're evaluating everything, not just the quarterback, everything. Like, we all got to be better. I mean, we're sitting at 500. And, I think, looking back at what we've done, there's a whole bunch of areas that we can improve on. I'm not just talking about the quarterback. I'm talking about everything. And we got to be better moving forward.
Yeah, he's exactly right. Colts head coach Shane Steichen right there talking about, what it means to evaluate everything. And it truly sounds like they're evaluating everything. Okay, they're obviously evaluating the quarterback spot because I'm an Anthony Richardson believer. I think that with given time, he could turn into a really good quarterback. I don't think that there's any sort of future available with Joe Flacco whatsoever. But everything needs to be evaluated for this Colts offense, not just Anthony Richardson. Okay, like they need to evaluate the wide receivers, right? Because even though Anthony Richardson was 10 of 32 on Sunday, that stat line would have looked a lot better if receivers had done their jobs. Okay, they're evaluating the offensive line and their ability to block because let's be honest, the offensive line wasn't very good. It wasn't, right? Anthony Richardson was pressured on 64% of his dropbacks on Sunday. The offensive line clearly needs to be reevaluated because they weren't very good on Sunday, right? And they're going to hopefully, I pray, that they evaluate the play calling, right? Because whether you're a fan of Anthony Richardson or not, whether you think Joe Flacco should be the starter, whether you think Anthony Richardson should be the starter, I think we can all agree, I think you and I can both agree that the play calling on Sunday was absolutely atrocious. When you're throwing more passes 20 or more yards down the field than you are throwing passes within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, that is an issue no matter who is playing quarterback for you. Okay, so hopefully they reevaluate the play calling because when we look at that Colts loss on Sunday, that is why they lost. Okay, they only lost by 3. Right? Like the game was close. They had opportunities. And if the play calling had been a little bit better, if Shane Steichen had done a better job of giving Anthony Richardson some easy throws, then the outcome of that game is probably a little bit different. From a personnel standpoint, I know that Shane Steichen says that they're evaluating everything. I don't think much is going to change because we're 8 weeks into the season, and there's not exactly a bunch of great free agents out there that you can just go and pick up. That's not an option. Like, you have what you have, and I just find it very hard to believe that someone that the Colts deemed as a starting caliber player on their roster is all of a sudden just not going to be that anymore, right? Like, I find that hard to believe. And what I think is really happening here, Shane Steichen is just trying to get the attention of his team because, yes, Anthony Richardson's numbers weren't very good on Sunday, okay? But no one else on the offense really played well either, with the exception of Josh Downs and Jonathan Taylor. Those were the only two players on the Colts offense yesterday that actually had success and actually did their jobs. Okay, so this feels like Shane Steichen sending a bit of a message, not only to Anthony Richardson, but everyone else on the team, because everyone else on this offense needs to be better. Receivers need to catch the football. Offensive linemen need to pass protect better, and so on. And Shane Steichen needs to do a better job of calling plays. Okay, so I don't think we're going to see any change in the personnel whatsoever. Maybe we see Flacco. I'm going to address that here in like 2 minutes. Where I do think we're going to see a change, no matter who plays quarterback, no matter who plays wide receiver, no matter who plays left tackle. Bernard Raymond has concussion symptoms, so he's probably not going to play on Sunday night. One thing I do think that we're going to see change, no matter who plays, I think we're going to see a change in the play calling. Okay, I was watching Monday Night Football last night. Great game, I guess. I don't know, watching the Steelers and the Giants play isn't exactly my favorite thing to do. But anyway, I was listening to Jason Kelce before the game. And, they were talking about Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson and the whole Anthony Richardson pulling himself out for a play debacle and all that kind of stuff. And in it, they start talking about Shane Steichen, and Jason Kelce called Shane Steichen the best play caller he's ever played for. Okay? So if we see any major adjustment, it's going to be in play calling because Shane Steichen is not dumb. Okay? He's not. He's going to go back. He's going to watch the film, and he's going to pick up on things that you and I probably won't, and he's going to make tweaks in how he calls the plays because Shane Steichen's not dumb. They aren't scoring points. They aren't consistently moving the football down the field. No matter who plays quarterback on Sunday, no matter who plays on the offensive line, no matter who plays wide receiver, we are going to see some sort of change in how the plays are being called. Now to Joe Flacco and Anthony Richardson, because I know that this is the big topic. I know there's a portion of people out there who think that Joe Flacco's great because he tore the Jaguars up. Great. But let's just be truthful about this. The Colts are not that much better with Joe Flacco at quarterback. Are they better? Sure. Undoubtedly. Joe Flacco is a better quarterback right now than Anthony Richardson is. Okay? But the difference is not that much. And I do not think he's going to be the starting quarterback Sunday night against the Vikings. I expect to see Anthony Richardson. And this quote from Shane Steichen when he was asked about developing young quarterbacks is why I think we're going to see Anthony Richardson and not Joe Flacco.
Yeah, I think it could go either way, right? I mean, there's certain guys that, throw guys into the fire early, and there's other guys that let them sit back and watch. So obviously playing, like I've said before, the more you play, the more you learn at that position. But is there benefit sometimes in sitting back and watching? Yeah, of course there is. And so those are just, conversations that go on in the off season and constantly going on through NFL football teams.
Shane Steichen right there talking about the advantages of playing versus sitting a young quarterback. He says it point blank. You get better by playing the position. He said it point blank. That is what he said. And because of that, if this is Shane Steichen's call, they're going to play Anthony Richardson. Okay? Shane Steichen is clearly a believer in playing young quarterbacks early. That is why Anthony Richardson was the starter last year until he got hurt. And it's why he hasn't been pulled out yet this year. Okay? If it is really Shane Steichen's call and he gets to decide who plays quarterback, it'll be Anthony Richardson. If Chris Ballard is the one deciding who's going to play quarterback on Sunday, it will be Anthony Richardson, because Chris Ballard is the guy who drafted Anthony Richardson, and he wants him to develop so that he can be right and he can parade around and be like, I told y'all so. Okay? The only way we see Joe Flacco on Sunday is if Jim Irsay himself, which is very possible, is if Jim Irsay himself inserts himself and says, hey, Shane Steichen, I'm sick and tired of watching Anthony Richardson. I want to see Joe Flacco instead. I believe that's the only way we see Joe Flacco on Sunday, which will be really frustrating because after the Colts drafted Anthony Richardson, our guy, Jim Irsay, made it pretty clear that people needed to be patient, talked about how raw Richardson is and how we have to be patient. And it's just going to be really annoying for me if Jim Irsay gave us a lecture on, hey, we need to be patient, and then he himself was impatient on the process. Okay? I think we see Richardson, but I'm not dumb enough to say there's no way we see Flacco, because I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if Jim Irsay came down and was like, hey, play Joe Flacco. I'm tired of watching this. And no matter who plays quarterback, Colts fans are going to be upset. Okay? Like if we see Joe Flacco, people that want to see Richardson and want to see if he can develop, those people are going to be upset. And, you know, if the people who want to win right now, like if they see Richardson, they're going to be upset that it's not Joe Flacco. But if we're truthful about Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco and the ceilings for these teams, the ceiling for the Colts playing Anthony Richardson is 9-8 or 10-7. That is the absolute best finish for the Colts this year when looking at the schedule and who they're going to play. The ceiling for the Colts with Joe Flacco is 9-8 or 10-7. Okay, once again, the difference between Joe Flacco and Anthony Richardson is not as big as everybody thinks. There is a major difference, though, between those ceilings being reached by these two different quarterbacks. Okay, if the Colts decide to roll with Joe Flacco the rest of the way, and let's say that they play to the best of their abilities and they go 10-7 and they make the wild card, and then they get their doors blown off in the first round by the Ravens or the Bills or the Chiefs, because that's probably who they're going to wind up playing, then great. Congratulations. You went 10-7 and you lost in the first round. Who cares? The answer is nobody, right? And then once you play Joe Flacco, the chances of them trading away Anthony Richardson for like a 6th round pick that Chris Ballard will probably use on a safety and be like, that's a steal. Like all that just goes up, right? And then 3 years from now, we're right back where we were 3, 4, and 5 years ago. Colts fans looking around being like, why don't we have a young quarterback? Why isn't Chris Ballard drafting a quarterback? That's where we're going to wind up, because consistently going 9-8 and 10-7 means you're drafting somewhere between the 15th and 23rd pick, right? And guess what? You're not drafting with the 15th or 23rd pick or anywhere in between. You're not drafting a franchise quarterback. It isn't happening, right? And so we'll be back to the revolving door of Matt Ryan and Phillip Rivers and Carson Wentz, right? And then eventually the Colts will miss, kind of like what they did with Matt Ryan, and then they'll be bad again. Okay? Do you know why the Commanders are good this year? It's because they went 4-13 last year. And because they went 4-13, they had the opportunity to draft Jaden Daniels. The best way forward for the Colts is Anthony Richardson, because if he figures things out, okay, we're acting like this guy's played just a million games. He's started 10 games in the NFL. He's only started and finished like 6 or 7. That's just not a big enough sample size. It's not. Okay? And so the best way forward for the Colts is to play Richardson, because he's either going to get better, okay? And if he does get better and the Colts reach that 9-8 or 10-7 and they make the playoffs, then they know that they've potentially found the future of their franchise in Anthony Richardson. Okay, so either that's going to happen or he's not going to get better. He's going to continue to be bad. And guess what happens when you're bad? You get to draft another guy that could potentially be your franchise quarterback. That's just how the NFL works. Okay, if you consistently go 9-8-ish, Colts fans, you should know this. This is where the Colts have lived for the past 5 years, with the exception of the Matt Ryan year. If you consistently go 9-8-ish, then you're not drafting a potential franchise quarterback. It's not happening. Do you know who you get between the 15th and 23rd pick? Kenny Pickett, who's the third string quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles now. Okay, this is the reality of the NFL. It's not fun going 4-13, but it gives you an opportunity to actually build a winner because you have a real opportunity to draft a legitimate franchise quarterback. The Commanders are going to be good for the next decade because they drafted Jaden Daniels. That is the reality of the situation, okay? Anthony Richardson should be the starting quarterback on Sunday. I think that's who we're going to see. If we see Joe Flacco, it's probably because Jim Irsay decided to get into the mix and said, hey, I'm done watching Richardson. I want to see Joe Flacco.